Is authenticity real? Or is there just good and not good? Or is authenticity a trap? How are we, I mean, it's a word you hear all over the food media world.
Can I
Yes,
go back?
that's why I'm asking.
Well, I kind of want to go back to a couple of things, but it goes back to this. First of all, America is fucking incredible.
Right.
First of all, because of events like this and because of rooms where different people can share. And restaurant is a space where you need everybody. You need the consumer, you need the food writer, you need the chef, you need all of these. So are we in a better state? Yes, we are, because exactly what Priya, like the fact that the Times said no, you pitched it, or wherever it came from, you said, no, we need this column, right? That changes everything. I call it the journey. You know, you think about back of the house, even that name, it's really about the anonymous laborer, and you had another term for it, right? So, but it's the same thing about when the biggest platform in the world makes space for that. That means that the food column in Stockholm or in Frankfurt or in Joburg is also changing, right? And that's kind of the power of America, right? So that's why that matters, and those are the decisions that you guys do, that you feel it sort of, but you don't. 5 years later, when it's a thing in Australia, it comes back, right? And it starts with something like that, so that's awesome. And I just think that we should never forget that inclusion diversity doesn't, first of all, people of color, it's not monolithic.
Right.
It's not monolithic in spirituality, in food, in choices, and how you see things. But it also doesn't mean that it's lesser for the majority. It means that it's more, because there's more options coming in. So there's a win-win-win for ever who has most access. And it also makes our country more, not less, more delicious.
Yeah.
And other terms in culture, we figure this out. Music, always 20, 30 years ahead, right? So I just think that there's so much in when the plurethal of what this incredible American experience is about, get to taste each other truly, and food is probably our best version of ourselves.
100%, and it becomes American food,
Yes.
and American food is the food Americans eat. Every American.
So going back to authenticity, for me, the key word is originality. Because, you know, each one of us here, there is no version where Sweden, Ethiopia, Harlem, why are you authentic in that? You're authentic by your originality, right? But I cannot, my purpose is not making herring the way my Uncle Torsten made them. My version is to figure out how can I kind of relate and do a version of that, but then maybe tweak it up for this audience here, because I have now evolved and I'm in New York City, right? So for me, authenticity, I start with it when I want to know the origin of where that food came from.
Right.
Does it have a spiritual background? Does it have a trading background? Whatever these super nerdy questions that I ask myself in research, then it's my job to make it original. Authentic to that experience, but not authentic to the place. I get reminded by that constantly by my wife, that when we do an Ethiopian meal or during an Ethiopian holiday, all her sisters, they fly in from Toronto, London, wherever they come, and the only thing I'm allowed to do is to give them my good chef knives.
Yeah, and stand back.
And then stand by and maybe chop.
Yeah.
Because you cannot make this raw beef dish on this date, because that's not original.
Got it. So I want to turn to you, Priya, because Indianish seems to get right at the heart of this.
Yes.
I mean, I just think that the problem with authenticity is that I think some people think that there's like, it's an objective word, that there is like one authentic version of a dish, but authentic is a very elastic word. It is dynamic. What is authentic to someone is not authentic to someone else. When I wrote Indianish, which is a cookbook about the food that I grew up eating, which was rooted in Indian flavors, but very much based on my mom's experience of moving to America and not having access to everything that she had access to. I mean, people in India hated it. There were like blog posts. How dare she put feta in saag? Why is she making her chonk with olive oil?
I love that you went viral in India. That's so cool.
There were like
Yeah.
There are like
I've done that.
entire blog posts about why Indianish is like a super problematic cookbook.
That's
And one thing I wish I could tell them. Did you know that chilies technically are not indigenous to India, nor are tomatoes, nor are potatoes, aloo gobi. Any spicy dish, matar paneer. These are all technically modern innovations. They aren't, by your definition, authentic. There is no such thing as the one authentic version of something. My Indian food is just as Indian as my grandmother's Indian food, and I think that we just need to start thinking of these terms as much more dynamic than we do. And the other thing that drives me nuts about authenticity and authentic is this idea that authentic Chinese food is associated with the cheap hole-in-the-wall place. It can't be, the guy who grew up Chinese American who's doing his riff on Cantonese food in a cool space, serving cool wine. Like, I feel like authentic sometimes gets associated with cheap, with
down market.
Yeah, down market, exactly.
That's a big problem. That's the biggest lie of authenticity.
Exactly. So it's like I don't have a problem with the word, but I feel like the way it has been deployed in food media is really
So
problematic.
hold the media to it.
Yeah.
Gail, what about you?
Well, I think you bring up such a good and a good point, Priya, in that, like, how does food evolve to begin with? Immigrant pathways are what change food, right? And what happens when a culture or a people from one place move to another place? They don't always move there by choice. We were just talking about this backstage. We were talking about how, if you follow pathways of slavery through the world, you get food, like you get the food that we all think of as authentic to a place, but it only got there
Right.
by a very direct path on ships that were not nice ships. And I think we can have that conversation and know that what also happens, what's amazing in this country, right?
Pulled out of the book. You can't have it in the
Sometimes they
States.
were pushed out, sometimes they fled, sometimes they went of their own accord, sometimes luckily they chose to move because they got transferred by IBM. I don't know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But what happens is actually osmosis, right? And osmosis goes both ways.
Yeah.
Where the amazing thing about America, and about so many places, but in America you see it so vividly, is that not only does a culture, or do people bring their culture and then their food and their their recipes, but they don't have the ingredients, so they improvise and something evolves. But the same thing happens the other way too, right? So ultimately, it all goes back to the fact that it enriches our lives.
Exactly.
And it gives us a broader language and a broader perspective. And then, going back to your first question, a better way to see the world, a more tolerant way to see the world. If you get rid of the fact that food has to be a certain way, because most of the food we know is due to evolution.